Okay, well, welcome to On the Park Bench, a public square conversation brought to you by the Congress for the New Urbanism. On the Park Bench presents interactive conversations with thought leaders in new urbanism and allied fields related to the built environment, providing an opportunity for the audience to engage in real time. And today we have What's New at CNU 31 with Margaret Gaddis, Matt Lambert, who will be joining us in a few minutes, Chris Mern, and Rob Studeville, yours truly. And you can register for coming webinars. We have one next week, April 11th at the same time, 12 noon. Join us for a conversation with urban designers and architects involved with car-free urbanism. Cul-de-sac Tempe and Cul-de-sac Atlanta are highly watched developments that are eliminating cars in residential areas, which allows for innovative urban design solutions. Go to cnu.org/resources/on-the-park-bench. And don't forget, not likely because this entire webinar is about it, but CNU 31 in Charlotte is taking place May 31st through June 3rd in one of the most diverse cities in the American Southeast with deep roots in new urbanism, the Queen City of Charlotte, North Carolina. And join or renew your membership. And if you do that, if you're a current member, you can save $250 off of your CNU 31 registration. So review your membership status today, members.cnu.org/memberships. And I should mention that we are still in the early bird registration period. So if you want to take advantage of that. And we've got a great show today. Margaret Gaddis is the executive director of CNU. She manages all internal operations of the organization. In leading CNU, Margaret combines her passion for cities, architecture, and people-centered design with over 15 years of experience developing and leading multidisciplinary teams in nonprofit membership organizations. Matt Lambert is a partner with DPZ Co-Design, leading the firm's Portland office. He's a planner, urban designer, and architectural designer who has worked on code reform, form-based codes, urban infill and redevelopment, greenfield development, campus redevelopment, and architectural design. He is the elected chair of the Congress for the New Urbanism Board. Chris Mern is a project architect and urban designer with Morrisburg Architects in Charlotte. He has over 15 years of experience in the field of architecture and urban design. Chris has served as a commissioner on the Historic District Commission of Charlotte. He believes that every great place tells a story, and he's helping CNU to tell these stories by serving on the local host committee for CNU 31 in Charlotte. I'm Rob Studeville, editor of CNU's Public Square, and today's discussion is all about substantial changes that are being planned in the Congress format at CNU 31, why these changes are being made, and the big picture plan that is driving these changes. And we're going to be talking about the truly exciting and fun activities in store for CNU 31 for those who attend. First, there will be presentations followed by a discussion among the panelists, and then Q&A from the audience. And we expect to have a lively discussion, so please use the Q&A function of Zoom to ask your questions as they occur to you. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of CNU congresses. And we are at CNU 31, but it's actually the 30th anniversary of the first Congress, and it's kind of like birthdays. If you're 30 years old, how many birthdays have you had? You might say 30. No, it's actually 31 if you count the actual birthday. And the birth of CNU happened in 1993 in Alexandria, Virginia. This is the well-known photo of the founders, the people who are often considered the six. Considered the founders on the right side of that photo, but others are in Peter Katz's book, The New Urbanism. But there are actually well over 100 people there who all could be considered founders in a way. And what they were trying to do was figure out what this new urbanism is all about. And they had this crazy, ambitious idea that they were going, a small group of people was going to change the entire direction of planning, built environment, development, land use planning, and design for America. And at that time, of course, it was this juggernaut, still is, where an enormous part of our economy was devoted to developing essentially sprawl and also knocking down urban places and cities. And they wanted to bring back the ideas of city building. So the first three Congresses were really about all that. They were different from later Congresses, and in essence, it was like getting everybody in one room, and everybody could talk, could be part of the discussion, every discussion. And they had devoted a Congress to each of the scales of the new urbanism, the block street building, small scale, then the neighborhood, district corridor, and finally the region, city, metropolis, town scale. And from that came the charter of the new urbanism was written, the principles or the philosophy of the new urbanism, which was then adopted and signed in Charleston in 1996. And from that philosophy, then the Congress has changed. And the idea was really to grow this movement, get more people involved, even as all the ideas, the great ideas of the new urbanism were being developed over many Congresses. So as these ideas came into the fore, the Congresses, they were presented at the Congresses. I remember the time the Transect was first presented. I believe that was in Toronto. And then you had form-based codes presented at Congresses, early form-based codes, and the transit-oriented development. That really wasn't a thing until the early 2000s. Freeways without futures. All these ideas were hashed out at various Congresses over the years, but it wasn't just the ideas that were changing. The world around us was also changing. Things happened like 9/11 or the 2008 housing crash, which was a cataclysm that affected the built environment in a huge way, the economy, the world economy, and there was really no money available after that for any big projects for a long time. And so new urbanism had to adapt or die. And many ideas came out of that adaptation, such as missing middle housing, that diagram by Dan Perolic at Opticos, incremental development, tactical urbanism, but also suburban retrofit came out around that time. And even though there was probably not a lot of funding for it, it grew and became a bigger thing later. So CNU has evolved. The big idea is that CNU has continually evolved and adapted to changes internally based upon the principles of the charter. So what comes next? This is what we're going to be talking a bit about today. And I really look forward to the discussion. And I think Margaret is going to speak now.
Thanks so much, Rob. I appreciate you explaining the CNU 31 birthday comparison, as that's a question I get often asked a lot, is how is it our 30th anniversary if we're having the 31st Congress? So thank you for doing that, so I didn't have to. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Margaret. You all probably have seen various communications from me over the last couple of years related to the Congress. It feels like we're continually working on it. Matt and I have been working together on the last few, and I've been really lucky to be working with the local host committee in Charlotte, including Chris, for over a year now. And we're really excited to be in the last kind of 8 weeks or so before the event. So we have three things we kind of want to talk to you about before, as Rob mentioned, we'll dig into some questions, and I know he has some as well. One of them is this kind of concept of rethinking the Congress and how we're presenting the information and how we are reformatting the experience. And I'm going to let Matt kind of talk about that specifically. And the other is a couple of things that are new about the event in terms of kind of the technical way it's being presented, as well as this idea of having a Congress focus, which if you've been tuning into some of our communications for the last few months, we're bringing a new focus to the event. So I'll start just a little bit about what to expect technical aspects wise. Then I can talk a little bit about the theme and then pass it over to Matt to talk about the rethink and kind of how we got here. And while some of this is a little chicken and the egg because the technical aspects are being presented to you because of the Congress rethink, we'll hope you can jump in with some questions in the chat if you all are confused. But basically a couple of really big new things that we're excited about in Charlotte, recognizing that this is kind of our first year of a 3-year trajectory of rethinking the Congress, which is something Matt's kind of leading. We are hoping to eliminate the ever prevalent, but very kind of hard to sit through panel presentations that consist of 15-minute PowerPoints and leave very little time for Q&A. One of the things that the Congress has always kind of been famous or infamous for, depending on your perspective, is what Rob was talking about, that real ideas are born from this event every year, whether it's missing middle, whether it's tactical. And so we've been responding to a call from members for the last few years to return to this place of allowing the attendees to really push each other to be to do better, to come up with better solutions, to further their practices. And so we are hoping that removing the concept of the panel presentation and really replacing it with opportunities for engagement and learning will hopefully help us kind of return back to that really like working together, learning together type of experience that the Congress was always famous for. So that's one major thing. The other major thing that we're doing is we're kind of evolving the concept of the plenary to be a TED Talk inspired kind of main stage. Starting each day, we're going to have a big non-compete conversation between a couple of really fantastic speakers, moderated Q&A. And then from there, each day is a kind of choose your own adventure, which is a phrase I steal from Chris, to kind of either continue the conversation from the main stage with those speakers, with additional speakers, to engage in, some short format presentations around the same theme, or to go and explore other opportunities that maybe don't have anything to do with the main stage, but that are still tying back up into the Congress kind of major focus. And so the three main stages that we're pulling together are going to be around, housing and density in the corridor, which is the Congress focus. We're going to be talking about climate, obviously, and urbanism as the kind of context for figuring out how to solve some of our climate problems. And then we're pulling together a conversation on kind of coding the corridor, which I think will involve a couple of different perspectives that we're really excited about. And so then again, each day we'll have a choose your own adventure kind of off of those themes after we open the day together. Following on some of the other feedback that we got, we're trying really hard to have each day begin together and end together with some sort of shared experience. Some of the shared experiences are going to be outside of the hotel venue, which is obviously welcome for everyone who doesn't love to spend a full entire week in a hotel. And Chris is gonna talk a little bit about some of those shared experiences, specifically the tours and some of the kind of walking opportunities outside of the conference room. But yeah, so those are the kind of technical aspects, things that are changing with the event. We're also moving a little bit towards a schedule that's starting all day Thursday, Friday, and then most of the day on Saturday, which is a shift from the way in which the past we've kind of started on Tuesday or even sometimes Monday, and ending earlier in the week. So that's kind of a technical aspect overview. I don't know if you, Rob, have any specific questions you want me to answer, if you want me to kind of flow into the focus. Matt asked me to kind of
And I, and
swap
I'll
those two pieces.
and I'll round out some of that too. So no worries.
You're muted. I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
You're fine.
I think we can have our discussion after everybody's done talking.
Cool. Then I will also just give a quick overview about the idea of the Congress focus, and then let Matt fill in the gaps, as he said. So we have had over the years, before I existed as a CNU staff person, and during those years, various attempts at trying to theme the event and saying, like, this year we're going to have the event be X. And some of those were more memorable than others, but I think that many times they ended up being kind of just too vague. They were too, like sustainability as a theme of the event, that you would show up and you wouldn't be able to really remember or be able to tell that that was the theme. So one of the things that is part of this Congress rethink is really providing a kind of a guiding problem that we are trying to have showcased and addressed at the event. And this year, that focus is the corridor. And so this was a theme that was developed in conjunction with the local host committee, as corridors is a really big focus of the city, both from a design, equity, economics perspective. And it also, ties back directly to a couple of areas in the charter, which is going to be the goal of our focus for each Congress moving forward, is that it combines something that feels really, that the local region or city is feeling really acutely, with something that ties directly back to the charter. And so all of the main stages that I mentioned about, housing in the corridor, climate, the corridor, coding in the corridor, those things are all going to be kind of tied. And it's not to say that every single session is going to be specifically about corridor focused ideas, but I think it's, recognizing that this kind of really prevalent urban form can be talked about from almost any aspect within the content that you would normally see at the Congress. Matt, do you want to fill in gaps?
Are you gonna unleash me?
Well, I have other things I could probably say, but I'll fill in your gaps. How about that?
Oh, good tag team. Sounds good. Sure. There's a lot, and I just, like, a few minutes ago dropped my kid off at school, so I was like, let me at least go second to get a little mental break. Well, some of us have been focused on change around the Congress for a while, and we didn't give up. And luckily, we had things shaken up by COVID, learned some stuff by putting on a couple of virtual events and sort of coming back into person, and has given a lot of opportunity to think through this change. And the first really most important thing is the theme, the focus, right? And as Margaret pointed out, there's been a lot of themes that haven't necessarily connected with practice. They're just sort of, we've done some of it. It's kind of like pulling it out of a hat. And the focus is really about clarifying our energy, focusing on our energy on problems or solutions that are important to the region that we're having the Congress in, right? We want to be local, we want to be connected, so we're building upon that. But there's also a focus that we've heard from a number of people. I know, Margaret, you've done a number of interviews with folks post Congress over the past couple of years. I've spoken with a lot of people as well, and there has been a desire for outcomes. We're not just getting together for a conference to talk about what we do. We're getting together to engage with each other, to bring ideas together, to create new solutions and have sort of this motivation and future outcome. Now, we don't get to that in a year, right? So we have a long-term vision for the rethink, which will occur over a couple of years. In Charlotte is one of the first steps along that trajectory. So we'll be experimenting with some things. we'll learn how to put some things together that we haven't before, what will and won't work. As Margaret said, as much as we'll try to tamp down those sessions of talking heads, it's, you can only do so much of that. So a few of those will pop up, so we can't whack them all of them. But in any case, we're learning and experimenting. But why? What's the purpose? Well, because we want people to come together, and we know that we feed off of each other's energy and ambition and interest, and we like to share ideas, and that's really what we want to sort of centralize in the way that everything works. So over a couple of years, the goal is to really jump into focus. Now, this is nothing fancy to share, but I was showing Rob and a little bit of this when we were talking about this initially, and here's just a quick Miro that we were looking at with some artwork from Russ Preston. And I'll say there have been a number of people working on Rethink over the years, some at the board level, some as rebels, which is how I was doing it. Others, I'm sure there's other avenues. We sort of hear it from every direction, and so there have been a lot of ideas generated. And what we're moving towards in this instance is a sort of a new vision that builds upon those many inputs. So Margaret spoke about the sort of shared experiences, the main stage piece, the coming together at the end of the day, and then there are some other pieces to this, the marketplace element, which is essentially that we want to have a lot of sharing of ideas alongside opportunities for people to interact in a more casual sense, to continue on conversations that may have come up in the main stage presentations. There's never enough Q&A time after a really great talk, so we can allow people to more intimately interact with the presenters on the subject matter that was presented, and even the interaction of that subject matter. But that we don't need to have over 1,000 people sitting there for that, right? So we can have a lot of options of where to go, and then also moving towards the idea of holding more workshops. This is something that, of course, CNU has experimented with in the past, and the sprawl repair workshops are a great example of that. So the thought with this is, with a theme, we want to focus the theme around on a few multidisciplinary workshops that are intended to sort of crowdsource a solution to problems, but beginning with a multidisciplinary right. Coffee mat, a multidisciplinary discussion about the subject matter, right? Because that's one of the things that we feel is most important about how CNU approaches topics and the Congress, which is that silos are the problem, and we need to break those silos and understand how things work at the intersection of different perspectives, different professions. And so that gives us an opportunity to set up for workshopping solutions amongst people. Now, we're not going to get 1,000 people, 1,500 people in a workshop, but it's really about finding the space for that and experimenting about how we can grow that over time to move towards this problem-solving idea of bringing the Congress together, which in fact is tied pretty closely to legacy projects as well, right? So the legacy projects, the intent is to give back to the place, right? Because we feel a drive and purpose to help, and so we see that there's an opportunity in the Congress overall to do so. So we've talked through a lot of this structure. As you can see, this set of ideas came out of a number of different groups over time. We've sort of done a workshopping of business model canvas of this, and worked through different ideas for agendas. Had some nice, it's blurry. Had some nice whiteboarding sessions, and accompanied it with Russ's wonderful illustrations. But all that to say that the goal is to really be engaging to get the Congress back in the Congress, which we've been talking about for a while, and having things shaken up has given us the opportunity to do that. So as we move into this, we'll see a few more changes in session types and so forth. Margaret pointed out some of them for Charlotte, and we'll sort of be moving into that, and we'll love to get people's feedback and ideas, because really it's about clarifying, our purpose and focusing our efforts. And we also want to strengthen relationships with our internal organizations, connected groups. So that may be chapters and the emerging new urbanists and others like that, or Strong Towns, which is tied just before the Congress this year, having their own meeting. So there's a lot of change afoot, but the goal really is to become more engaging. And one of the technical aspects that we didn't touch on about being more engaging is trying to strike that balance between how many sessions can we have, and can we have enough time to get lunch, please? And how about a little break so that we can talk to people, right? So we're trying to figure that balance out and fit it in. And one last thing, which is about shorter presentations. And that's a type of session that we didn't talk about so much. It's been experimented with over the years, sessions that have say 5 or 6 presentations of about 7 minutes each, and then sort of a discussion around shared ideas in those. They're really interesting in that provides an opportunity to hear a lot of new concepts and a lot of new ideas, a lot of experience in the world, to test things. And at 7 minutes, if it's not great, that's fine, right? No biggie. But you can have the sort of world-changing 7 minutes right up after that. So we are finding ways to provide some much more curated content, which would be the main stage, things that we do when we're all together, paying more attention to things like workshops, and then allowing for some less focus on the curation by having more short format presentations, so that we can get a lot of ideas and also focus our efforts and focus our shared experiences. So I'm probably missing something, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I'm here in Charlotte on the roof of my work building, so I can still get the Wi-Fi. And you can see behind me, we have Uptown Charlotte. We call Uptown Charlotte the area or traditional downtown, but it was founded on the highest point in the local region on the crossing of 2 trade routes, and Charlotte was there, so it's Uptown Charlotte. So we're referring to the 4 wards within there. That kind of to the northwest is I-77, and then 277 and encompasses all that. And we've got a great opportunity to really showcase everything that Charlotte has to offer. And I think to start, our multimodal tours, we're offering over 26. If you've been following CNU on social media, we have the last one today, or excuse me, the last one tomorrow. So for the whole month of March, we've been highlighting all the tours and how we're going to showcase Charlotte in all the glory. We have over 5 walking tours, 5 biking tours this year, and then a series of tours that will be on mass transit, whether it's our streetcar or light rail, and then the traditional bus tours. And we have some of those traditional bus tours because we just don't want to stay in Uptown Charlotte or the neighborhoods around. We've got tours that are going to go up to Huntersville, and as many of you are familiar with, Birkdale Village, that's ready to celebrate its 20th year. We've got tours that are going to go out to smaller towns around Charlotte, like Mount Holly and Davidson, and even out to the Whitewater Center, where the national canoeing and kayaking team train and compete for their places in the Olympics. So they have over 75 miles of trails for hiking, running, and walking. So it's great to kind of jump on a tour, go out there, and then Uber back with friends when you've had enough. We have tours that are going to be highlighting the past and present of this city, from our mill history past, when everything around here used to be cotton fields, to what the banks have brought, not just in financial contributions, but their contributions to the arts and culture of the city. We're also looking at walking tours and tying in very strongly with corridors, redefining kind of what a pedestrian corridor can be and in the city, and where these partnerships, whether it's light rail or traditional biking infrastructure, really create a new corridor that allows you to get out in this wonderful city. So some of the highlights that we have are going to be on our greenways with Little Sugar Creek, several of our parks in Uptown. We have the rail trail that runs parallel with our light rail into South End. And then also the Uptown Cycle Link, where just, looking for equitable safety on streets and streets for all, we have an infrastructure of protected bikeways within our Uptown. There's also the opportunity to get on our Cross Charlotte Trail, the XCLT, that when completed will be over 30 miles of trail that's connecting Cabarrus County from our northeast down to Lancaster, South Carolina, all the way across Mecklenburg County where Charlotte sits. We have historic districts tours that are going to be looking at how these historic districts are pushing back against densities and being squeezed by the development, as you can see over my left shoulder of South End, that's kind of starting to challenge the heights that we see in our urban core. We also have tours here in West End, Charlotte, right over here in a collection of Black neighborhoods that were founded around 1910 and that really found their footing and boom post-World War II. And they're looking to kind of keep their history and their placemaking in the face of gentrification. On a lot of our tours, you're going to probably hear about our UDO, as it's been a big commitment of time from the city, and it comes into effect on June 1st, but especially in the West End, the UDO is a tool that's looking to preserve the neighborhood character. And in other areas, you also hear about how it's looking to increase density and walkability. Speaking of density and walkability, we have tours that are highlighting our pushback from some of the developers to the regulations of traditional TOD and residential. So we have tours that are going to be highlighting either zero parking cars or car shares within the buildings, or their proximity to greenways. So for bike infrastructure, there's not necessarily one car to one bedroom in there. And then also, Margaret hinted on our shared experiences in the morning. In the past, there's always been a good running collective that has been in the Congress, and we're looking to really enhance that and offer opportunities for yoga within the in between the buildings and uptowns. And then with our friends from Art Walk CLT, we'll have a series of mural tours that will be guided tours through the city, and we'll have a host that'll kind of lead you through and talk about our very robust infrastructure of murals and artists that are booming within the city. But it doesn't stop there. With your free time and what Matt hinted on with hopefully a little bit longer lunch break, you're really in a walking mecca to be in second ward with the hotel. And so within the four wards in our third ward, we have our stadiums and our art museums that are very close to the hotel with the Beckler, the Mint Uptown branch, and then also the Harvey B. Gantt Center for African American Arts and Culture. In our first and second ward, we have our government center and the parks that surround it and the places for people, along with our market and a Hope 6 project. And in our fourth ward, we have our closest historical district, the fourth ward neighborhood, that is one of 8 historical districts very close to our urban core. And that's another kind of way that, linking back to the West End on how can we protect these historic neighborhoods. And some neighborhoods have been aligned and developed or created the energy enough to get the historic district notation. But don't forget to bring your walking shoes, because there's not just the stuff in Uptown. With your registration for the Congress and through the app, there'll be a city transit pass that you can enjoy going, whether it's through the buses, our streetcar, and then also our light rail. And these really open up the city and the neighborhoods around it. So to the south end, that you can see with the development behind me, we've got our rail trail and stretching that density from from Uptown that I talked about. To the north, we have Optimus Park, NODA, and eventually UNCC, which was the site of one of the legacy projects. And then to the east, we have Elizabeth and our Central Piedmont Community College with their brand new state-of-the-art PAR Center for Student Life. And this is a traditional 2-year community college that's really created a robust infrastructure for what the county needs as far as a workforce, but also what they are trying to build in those 2 years that people are on campus and their cultural nodes and how to create that sense of place. And then to the west end here, we, like I mentioned before on one of our tours, the equitable TOD and preserving of neighborhoods that are so important. Luckily for everybody that's coming to the Congress, our Charlotte Knights are in town. So every night, 5 blocks away, there'll be our urban stadium with the city as a backdrop. That is quite the time, no matter how the team's playing. And I also encourage people to check out our breweries, and not from an alcohol function, but just as really creating a sense of third places in this city. And there's tons of brewers that aren't just going the alcohol route. There's a lot of choices that are non-alcoholic or ciders or what have you of adult beverages, but these really are getting back to the tradition of third places. That's obviously beautiful to be outside in times like this, but also can be, a lot of energy for the sharing of stories with friends and making new ones. I really encourage everybody to follow charlottesgotalot.com, Axio Charlotte, or Charlotte 5, as these are really a great way to show everything else that's going on in the city. And they all do a great job kind of covering what other energy I might not have right now. And I really feel, at the end of the day, Charlotte has something for everybody, especially people who like deep fried vegetables, because we're in the South and we really deep fry a lot of vegetables. So.
Sounds amazing, Chris. And I would mention that we've had bike tours in previous Congresses, but these are power assist pedal bikes,
Yes.
which you can go far on, and they're fun. And you also have a bike share, right? That does have these power assist bikes, and the bike shares are all around, so people can really see good parts of the city by bike, even if you're not like really in great shape for biking.
Yes. Well, that's what this looks flat, but there's probably 75 feet between here and the city. So you go down and up a lot, and it is very sneaky.
Well, I'm sure it is, and we look forward to that. I wanted to remind people that that we, put questions in the Q&A function of Zoom. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your questions about this. It's an ongoing dialogue. I wanted to just sort of ask a little bit. You've got the big stage, you've got the Congress, you've got the interactive Congress, you've got the workshop Congress. Is it fair to say that you're looking to reduce the big stage aspect of the Congress and increase those other areas, or not?
Given historically how things have been organized, there have been the plenaries. There's typically been 3. That's sort of a big stage thing, and the main stage is like, but not like that. It's like that in a way, but we still want that to be limited, and we want those to not just be one voice, and we want them to be connected to the theme, and sort of a means of starting out the day with content that we feel everyone should hear, that then can filter into their experience through sessions the rest of the day. Now, we're putting them all at the same time of day, so it's really it sets the sort of day's agenda and focus. And we'll get there to see how that works through reviewing sessions, which we've all had lots of fun figuring out different ways to be more effective at doing that. But what we're saying in terms of trying to limit and shift in other ways is to have fewer sessions that you might find, and this is what a lot of people do, you might find that somebody submits a session that they also had submitted to APA and AIA and all these different things, which are all the same format, and like that's just not who we are, right? And so what we want to do is have more opportunity for interaction, for sharing of ideas of multiple perspectives, and we do focus on our review of proposals on proposals that focus on ideas more so than like, oh, here's here's the way that we did this on this project, right? Which is still valuable, but in any case, that allows us to try to shift to these short format pieces, which are getting a lot of ideas out there, but then also making room once again for meetings of groups that are actually working on things within the organization, or groups that are allied with the organization, or a new group that wants to come up. So historically we've had the initiative sessions over lunches, like the rainwater in context and the educational focus group, and others like that, and we're trying to put those into the main mix of things, rather than necessarily a lunch session that is going to also be similar for other organizations. The guild will still do a whole bunch of programming on their own, the New Urban Guild, but like there's other groups, National Town Builders Association, who we always want to provide space for, and they can have presentations and their own sort of meeting focus. Place Initiative has their focus on meeting. There's the Black Caucus, the Christian Caucus, all sorts of different organizations within the sort of CNU umbrella that we want to provide space for them to work together to meet, to move forward their agenda, and to provide more space for other groups to emerge, right? Because we know that as this interesting, we see ourselves as bottom up organization. It's not that CNU, the organization, is setting the agenda and getting all of the work done, right? It's more so being supportive and convening people who are sort of on their own, coming together and working towards solving these problems, and we find ways to connect those and amplify that and provide educational background for it, provide assistance where we can, and try to promote those ideas. So it's really, in a way, we're sort of saying, like, let's right size, even the timing that we have for sessions, so that we can have more interaction, but then we can also find ways to allow for more of this interaction amongst members who are going to then carry forward the work throughout the year.
Margaret, you used an interesting phrase in an article that you wrote about this a few months ago, and you said putting the Congress back in the Congress. Do you have any thoughts on what does that mean, and how are you thinking about doing that?
Sure. So I think, that's a phrase that we've been batting around for a couple of years now, because, as I think I said at the top of this, there has been kind of an ongoing request from members over the last maybe 10 or so years to kind of return the event to its roots. So as Matt said, a lot of conferences out there are very similar. A lot of, repeated presentations. And what makes the Congress a Congress and not a conference is that, our attendees have always, it's consisted of a really, passionate, multidisciplinary group of people who come together to, move forward the practice of Norbernism and their own, private practices. So it's a 3-year plan, really, in the whole kind of vein of the Congress rethink, to get us back to a place where folks were gathering together to, identify issues and really develop creative solutions to those issues and move the practice forward. And so, if you've been to some of the earlier Congresses where people were really kind of pushing each other to come up with solutions to really complicated problems, to develop, to dream big, to think beyond the kind of current toolbox of solutions for some of these prevalent issues that cities and towns are facing. That's kind of what makes a Congress a Congress. And so while it seems a little silly to say, like, we're going to put the Congress back in the Congress, the point here is to say we want to rediscover the roots of the event itself, which was not, the biggest, baddest placemaking conference in the country, but was really an opportunity for passionate people to get together to solve a problem, to like work in a problem space and move the practice into, forward. So the Congress focus this year is one major way we're doing that. There's an evolving, as Matt hinted at, process for identifying sessions, curating sessions, putting forward sessions and content that we're hoping will help, take a chunk out of that. A lot of the like shared working together, learning together, experiencing together. Those are all the things that we think makes the Congress distinguished and different than every other placemaking conference in the world. So that's kind of what that hints at.
And Rob, I'll just take two of the questions that I see there, because I think one is very tied to where Margaret just left off, and that's a question that asked, the published schedule has many placeholders that don't specify the topics. Is that information provided elsewhere still being worked out? Margaret and I are meeting right after this to continue to work on that. It's sort of the last couple of years we've been trying to find our footing on this and are behind. We've changed leadership at the organization. That's sort of at a time that's pushed us off in terms of being able to deliver the session selections, topics, timeline in the time that we would like to, the time frame. So we're certainly working on getting that done earlier for next year and for the following years. So I believe that should be together at least fairly soon. Margaret, I don't know if do you have a timeline in mind with that?
Yeah, so I also just put a link in the chat to one of the pages on our website, which describes a little bit the agenda. But there are more significant descriptions kind of at the bottom of that page about, the type of coding sessions, the type of housing sessions, the topics we're talking about in transportation and climate and, equity, which I think will give you a little bit of better idea of what sorts of sessions you'll get. But yeah, my goal is that Matt and I will have most of that hammered out this week, and we'll update the website as soon as we can. We have more final stuff, offline. It's just we haven't necessarily updated that public facing agenda, but we will do that this week is our kind of drop deadline for that.
Great. And the other, Rob, I just wanted to grab Patty Steinschneider's comment. He was asking about open innovation and the small stage opportunities. A mic in your hand for 7 minutes with limited hurdles, and really our goal, Patty. So this open innovation was an idea that started a decade ago, at least, that came off of some a next gen shoulder event that was held beforehand, and then sort of brought this thought like, well, getting ideas in short format presentations, a lot of them together is a really great way to have a low barrier of entry to either new ideas or voices that are new to the CNU group overall, or things that may be a little bit obscure that we would say, I don't know if that gets the whole session, but you provide an opportunity for more participation, and so that was worked on for a decade, and Patty took a really strong lead with that for a long time in organizing those, and a call for proposals on that and putting those sessions together. And we've been trying, and I welcome your critique, Patty. We've been trying over the last the last Congress and this Congress to try to put that up front as opposed to sort of later, to allow an open net of anybody to propose short sessions in the main in the main call for proposals. So I mean, to us, that's sort of like making it part of the Congress solidly. So our goal is to really make it a core piece of Congress programming. What was open innovation? Should we still call it open innovation? I don't know. I'm open. but that has been our goal, and I think given the time that Patty has given to that over the years, that I would certainly welcome some help in figuring out how best to moderate, to identify additional moderators to help orient people to that process. But our goal overall is to ensure that we have more low barrier to entry short presentations so that we can get a greater sharing of ideas and hear from new voices that we don't already know.
There was an interesting point was raised in the chat, and to quote, I would like to hear ideas about facilitating a civil dialogue at charrettes and public work sessions and meetings. We've experienced a shift towards aggressive, uncivil interactions. And I would just say that at the legacy charrettes, which are really part of the Congress, but happened before the Congress, there was, I think, some good examples of how to facilitate that sort of a dialogue. But at the Congress, I'd like to hear whether you think there's going to be a lot of discussion about that, a chance to learn about how to facilitate the civil dialogues in this day.
Yeah, well, I mean, perfectly timed. There is a session that's being organized by Bill Leonard, who ran the National Shred Institute for quite a long time, and a good friend. He's going to lead a session on that topic specifically, and strategies for addressing the divided dialogue that we're seeing to be more prevalent. And there are also a few other sessions that are focused indirectly at some aspects of that issue because it is very prevalent. So there's both. Certainly don't miss Bill's session on that, but also I think we may find that topic come up over and over again as we're dealing with it regularly.
Okay. Patrick brings up the the idea of testing claims and analyzing goals. And he said, what claims could be tested and what goals could be analyzed with regards to the corridor? And how do these papers in the call for academic papers fit into the structure of the Congress?
I have, Margaret, you might be able to talk about, because I'm not as on the papers, but I can talk about one thing with the metrics and claims and corridors.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I just happened to receive a message from Dr. Tice, who had presented last year on her studies, I think at UCF, related to driver behavior and the design of roadways, where they're mounting cameras in cars and sort of tracking people's eye movements and interactions and how they respond to different stimuli of the road. So that I don't think that she submitted a paper because that research is ongoing, but that is an example. The work that they're doing would be a perfect example of that. Now we could also, which is proving out our claims. What they're proving so far are things that we've empirically understood, that we need friction, we need the tightness of space, we need people to sort of see action on the street, to have visual friction to slow down the cars, and they're proving that to be the case through academic research. That's one aspect of corridors, but we could also look into research on the impact of redevelopment around corridors to the sort of areas surrounding that. I think there's a lot of ways that we have in terms of engineering, quality of life, economics, housing and affordability, and sort of transportation efficiency, and even natural corridor systems. There's a lot that you could sort of fit into the theme. But in any case, I don't know as much about the process and so forth, so I'll let Margaret answer the rest.
Yeah, those papers are being curated in a separate process by Ellen Dunham Jones and Emily Talon, and so they will be. I think all of the papers that are being selected will be presented in a single session that we've got space for. So if you want to send me an email, I'm happy to get more details about the timeline on that.
I would just like to bring Chris in for a minute for a brief interlude. Could you tell me what the most interesting, from an urbanistic point of view, places or neighborhoods in Charlotte are that the attendees should go to?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm going to cheat, and I'm just going to say the rail trail. So that encompasses pretty much half of Uptown and then goes down into South End. And especially now, that there's such a boom. I don't know if you can see all the cranes behind me on my left. There is just a ton of density kind of coming up around our TODs, and it's very exciting. And at the same time, there's just a ton of people. I mean, the rail trail originally was to be for bicycles and to have that be part of it, or along with walking and jogging. But there's so many people sometimes, especially in and around the work hours, that you can't even get a bike on it. You're just being rude at that point. So it's great to think that there are dense places in a southern city and in something like Charlotte that this isn't sprawl didn't go everywhere. There's really a lot of opportunities that you'll see that people are going up. But it's been awesome. I mean, I'm partial to NODA. It was settled as an artist community just to the north. It's a couple stops on the light rail. I live right outside of it. So I guess there's a selfish plug there, but there's just people that will talk to you, say hello, talk about the weather, just that kind of stuff. It's a really inviting southern city, in my opinion, from that aspect.
Hopefully the weather, if you're in a t-shirt, hopefully the weather is as beautiful at the end of May, early June as it is now in Charlotte.
Yep.
Monica asks about how well we respond to work from home. How will we respond to work from home as regards to density equations across the scale in rural and urban cities? I don't know, work from home is a huge trend these days. How much are there sessions at the Congress that will be focusing on work from home and the urban implications?
I know that some of the coding sessions touched on the coding implications of live work situations. I'm not sure the extent to which the kind of corridor housing, density conversations will touch specifically on work from home. I don't know if Matt, you have anything you want to add?
Oh, I mean, I only have like 2 minutes. Well, yeah, I don't know how much it's going to be covered, but I think that is certainly like a subject of uncertainty at the moment, and there's a lot to discuss on the matter. Like I was just, just as an aside, I was just yesterday reviewing some analysis that was done by Sharon Woods for a project that we're working on in Michigan, and a municipal project, and she looked at the trends from work from home before and after COVID for this area, and before COVID was like 5%, and now at the current point that we are now, it's at about 12%. So there was an increase, but it's not a super significant increase, and that may vary from place to place. So I certainly welcome the discussion. I don't think anybody proposed anything specifically on that, but if you find me in the hallway, I can connect you to some people that I know are doing some analysis about it. I think a lot of what we do best is first to know that you can kind of you should feel free to walk up to pretty much anybody and say, oh, hey, I'm interested in this topic. I think that you may also be interested in this topic, and it's really that making of connections that sets things apart. So feel free to pull me aside or whomever, and we'll do the best to make connections and see how that conversation can grow into something more.
I was gonna say I'll have to get Matt a special colored T-shirt, and you can locate Chris and I with our cool guy sunglasses. But
Yep.
I'll have to get Matt like a yellow T-shirt and maybe an umbrella or something.
I don't know about an umbrella, but I do have a mustard yellow backpack. I could just wear that.
And I'll just quickly, we got a question from Joe about the CNU Connect app, and I just want to make sure we were able to answer that one. We will be updating the CNU Connect app to add CNU 31 as an event on it. It won't impact any of the material connections, messages, or anything from CNU 30 because it'll be a separate event on the app. But just keep an eye out for updates on our website and in our communications about that.
Okay, well, we are just past the hour point. I know Matt has to go, so I want to just thank everybody. I want to thank the panelists, Chris, Matt, Margaret, for being here, and I want to thank everybody who was attending and asking pertinent questions about CNU 31. I really look forward to going back to Charlotte in a little under 2 months. And maybe you can show me some breweries there, Chris, or something.
Oh yeah, very much so.
There's so much activity on the ground in downtown and in uptown when I was out there last, and it's really picked up. I've certainly spent time in the city over the years, and it's very, very lively and exciting. So I definitely look forward to being there with everybody.
Okay, we'll see you all in Charlotte and see you later and on the park bench, I'm sure.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
A good day.
Okay.